She looked at the hands that saved her life and told me they'd ruin her wedding photos. Let that sink in for a second, because I sat with it for a lot longer than a second. I'll tell you that much. My name's Jack Reese. I'm 53 years old. I've lived in Cincinnati my whole life, and up until about 6 months ago, I would have told you the worst thing that ever happened to me was already behind me. I would have been wrong. Welcome to Dad's Raw Revenge. Get comfortable. This story's going to take you somewhere. Hit that like button and drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from. Trust me, you're going to love it here. Let me set the table first. Literally, because that's where this whole thing blew up. The private dining room at that venue out in Indian Hill smelled like rosemary and money. Real thick white tablecloths. Little votive candles even though it was the middle of the afternoon. Because apparently ambiance doesn't care what time it is when you're spending someone else's trust fund on a wedding. I sat at the end of the table, across from my daughter Lauren and her fiancé's family. The Werners. Old Cincinnati money. The kind of family that's had the same country club membership since Eisenhower was president. Helen, my ex-wife, sat 2 seats down, laughing a little too loud at something Mrs. Werner said about the chicken versus the salmon. Aidan, Helen's husband, Lauren's stepfather, had his arm draped over the back of Helen's chair like he owned the room. Man talks about portfolio diversification like he's ever had a portfolio worth diversifying. 25 years I raised that girl. 25 years and I'm the guy sitting at the end of the table like an afterthought. The server set down these little ramekins of braised short rib, and I reached for my water glass. That's when I saw Lauren's eyes drop to my hand. I know what she saw. Everybody sees it eventually. The skin on the back of my right hand doesn't look like skin anymore. It's tight, shiny, pulled in these ridges like wax that melted and hardened wrong. My fingers don't bend the way fingers are supposed to. I've had 20 years to get used to people staring. I never really did. Lauren's face did this thing, this little flinch, like she'd bitten into something sour. "Dad," she said, quiet at first. Then she leaned in like she'd been rehearsing it. "I love you, but look at your hands." The table went a little quiet. Mrs. Werner suddenly found her water glass very interesting. "They're rough," Lauren said. "They're scared. They're going to ruin the pictures. The photographer said the close-ups of holding my hand will look terrible." She practiced this. She practiced this speech in a mirror somewhere. "Aidan just looks more the part," she went on. "And God help me," she gestured at him like she was doing a car commercial. "He's got nice hands. He wears a ring well. And the groom's family is very high society, and I don't want things to be awkward." A breath. Then the knife twisted slow. "He's walking me down the aisle. You can sit in the back row." Nobody said anything. Aidan had the decency to at least look uncomfortable, staring hard at his short rib like it owed him money. Helen didn't. Helen looked almost relieved. Like a weight had come off her. I looked down at my hand wrapped around that water glass. "I want to tell you," I said something, some perfect line, some gut punch of a comeback that put her in her place. I didn't. I've replayed that moment probably 400 times since, and every time I do the same thing I did that day. I nodded. I stood up. I put my napkin on the table, folded it once like my mother taught me, and I walked out of that room without saying a single word. You built her a life with these hands, and she just told a room full of strangers they're an embarrassment. Cincinnati traffic on 71 South doesn't care that your heart just got carved out with a butter knife. I sat in it for 45 minutes. Radio off, just my thoughts and the sound of my own breathing. I kept looking at my hand on the steering wheel, really looking at it the way you look at something after somebody tells you it's ugly. Like maybe this time you'll see what they see. I didn't cry. I want that on the record. Jack Reese does not cry in traffic on 71 South. But something in my chest sat there like a brick the whole ride, heavy and useless, all the way back to my apartment off Erie Avenue in Hyde Park. Modest place, 1 bedroom, exposed brick, the kind of apartment a guy rents when he's got money he refuses to spend on himself. I let myself in, dropped my keys in the bowl by the door, and stood in my kitchen not knowing what to do with my hands. Which, considering the conversation I'd just walked out of, felt like a cruel joke. I ended up in the 2nd bedroom, the one I use as an office, though office is generous. It's a card table and a filing cabinet and a shoebox I've never gotten around to putting in a real photo album. I sat down on the floor with my back against the wall, and I opened that shoebox. First photo on top, Lauren, maybe 9 years old, vanilla ice cream cone in one hand, my hand in the other, both of us grinning like idiots outside Aglamacey's Brothers on Madison Road. There she is. There's my girl. And that's when it all came back. Not slow. All at once, like a door blowing open in a storm. You want to know who I was before all this? I'll tell you. Every Saturday, rain or shine, I picked Lauren up right after my shift ended at the plant. I worked the line at a hydraulic systems manufacturing plant out in Norwood. Good union job, decent pay, calloused hands from the honest kind of work. I'd still have my work boots on, safety glasses pushed up on my head, and she'd come tearing across the yard yelling, "Daddy," like I'd been gone a year instead of 8 hours. We had a routine. Aglamisi's brothers for ice cream. She always got vanilla. Always, no matter how many times I told her they had 40 other flavors. She'd hold my hand the whole walk there, swinging our arms like we were the only two people in Ohio. And when we got close to the plant gates, I'd hoist her up onto my shoulders so she could wave at the guys on the loading dock. "There's my hero," she'd shout down at me, ice cream dripping onto my collar. And every single one of my coworkers would laugh and wave back. There was this one guy, Larry Boyd, who worked the dock with me for 12 years, who used to say, "Reese, that girl's gonna run this city someday, you watch." I believed him. I truly believed every word of that. Those Saturdays were the best hours of my week. Better than payday. Better than the Bengals winning, which, let's be honest, wasn't happening often enough to be a real contender anyway. I had no idea one of those Saturdays was going to be the last normal one. It was a Saturday like any other. I had to swing by the plant to grab my check before we headed out. Payroll had messed up direct deposit that week. One of those things you don't think twice about. I brought Lauren in with me. She'd been in that building 100 times. Everybody knew her. She was drawing on a napkin at the break room table while I walked over to grab my envelope from the office window. I heard it before I understood it. A deep metal groan, like the building itself was clearing its throat. Then a bang that I felt in my teeth. One of the main hydraulic lines had ruptured. Pressurized fluid, scalding hot, chemical treated, blew out of that pipe like a fire hose made of acid. Lauren. I didn't think. There wasn't a thought in my head. Not one single word. My body just moved. I got to that break room table in maybe 2 seconds flat, and threw myself over her, wrapped my arms and back toward the blast, made myself as big as I could between her and that spray. It hit me across the back, the arms, the hands. Mostly the hands, because that's what I had wrapped around her, shielding her face. I don't remember the pain the way you'd think. I remember Larry's voice screaming my name from somewhere far away. I remember the smell, like burnt hair and something chemical and wrong. I remember Lauren underneath me screaming, completely unhurt. Not one drop touched her. Not one single drop. She walked away from that day without a mark on her. I didn't. Larry saw the whole thing. Ran over before anybody else even understood what happened. Pulled Lauren out from under me while I was still down on the floor. He never forgot it. Man still calls me every year on the anniversary, just to check in. Some things you don't stop carrying, even when you're not the one who got hurt. I'd do it again. 1,000,000 times over. I'd do it again. That was never the question. The question, the one nobody bothered to ask me for 15 years, was what it would cost me after. You'd think a man throwing himself in front of chemical fire for his daughter would earn him something. Gratitude. A little grace. Maybe just the benefit of the doubt. Helen filed for divorce 4 months later. I remember sitting across from her in a lawyer's office downtown, my hands wrapped in compression bandages, still healing, still learning how to hold a fork again, and she wouldn't even look at them. "You brought her to that plant, Jack," she said. Flat. Cold. Like she'd rehearsed it in the mirror, same as Lauren would, 20 years later. "You're reckless. I can't trust you not to put her in danger again." Reckless. I nearly laughed. I would have laughed if it didn't hurt so much to move my chest. "Helen," I threw myself in front of. "I know what you did." She cut me off, sharp. "I know exactly what you did." And that was the thing. She did know. She knew better than anybody. That's what made it so much worse. This wasn't ignorance. This was guilt, wearing anger like a Halloween mask. Because it's easier to be furious at somebody than to sit with the fact that you weren't the one who saved your kid. She got full custody. I got weekends, then every other weekend. Then, slowly, the way ice melts so gradual you don't notice the puddle until you're standing in it, I got less than that. And somewhere in those years, she started rewriting the story. I didn't catch it happening in real time. You never do. But looking back now, I can trace it. Little comments over the years filtered back to me secondhand. Lauren telling a teacher her dad got hurt because he wasn't being careful. Lauren at 13 asking me why I let that happen. Not what happened to you. Why did you let that happen? 15 years, Helen had that girl's ear every single day, and I had her every other weekend if the schedule cooperated. You do the math on whose version of the story was going to win. She turned the proof of how much I loved that girl into evidence against me, and I didn't even see her do it. The lawsuit against the plant took almost 3 years to settle. Landmark case, corporate negligence, faulty maintenance records, the whole ugly truth about how a multinational company let a hydraulic line rot until it blew a hole in a father's hands. I won. Won big. The kind of settlement that changes a family's entire trajectory. I never touched a dime of it. I know how that sounds. Believe me, my own attorney thought I was out of my mind. Jack, you could buy a house in Hyde Park outright. You could retire tomorrow. And I sat there in his office, in the same modest work boots I'd been wearing my whole life, and I said no, because somewhere in the back of my head, Helen's voice was still there. Reckless. If I spent that money on myself, wasn't that proof she was right about me? So I did the only thing that made sense to a guy who'd already given his hands for his daughter. I put every dollar into a discretionary spendthrift trust, locked, protected, managed by me alone, set up to release at her milestones. 25th birthday. Wedding. A house someday, if she wanted. One. I kept working. Took a quieter trade after the plant. Precision machine work. Steady hours. Nothing flashy. Kept the same one-bedroom apartment. Drove a used Chevy Malibu with 140,000 miles on it that I maintained myself because I refused to pay a mechanic for work I could do with my own. 2 ruined hands. People probably thought I was just cheap. Let 'em think that. The truth was, I was saving every dollar I never spent for a girl who by then could barely stand to look at me. Helen remarried when Lauren was 17. Aiden Hill. Smooth talker, always in a blazer even on a Tuesday. Drove leased luxury cars he swapped out every 2 years, like they were sneakers. Called himself a commercial businessman, which in my experience is what guys say when they don't actually have a business. I didn't think much of him at first. Figured he was harmless. Charming, sure, the way a used car salesman is charming. But harmless. I was wrong about that too. Somewhere around Lauren's early 20s, Aiden started taking a real interest in her finances. Not mine. He knew I kept the trust locked up tight, not getting past me on that front. But her future access to it. Started talking to her about protecting her inheritance, about smart positioning before the payout hits. Smart positioning. That's a fella who's never had 2 nickels of his own money to position anywhere. He walked her through paperwork one night, I know this now, pieced together after the fact. Paperwork that used her future trust distribution as collateral on some commercial loan he needed for a business venture that never quite existed the way he described it. Told her it was routine. Told her it was safe. Told her, probably with that same smooth Cadillac salesman voice, that she needed to sign it to protect what was coming to her. She trusted him. She was desperate by then to impress the family she was marrying into. The Werners, old Cincinnati money, watching her like she was a stock they hadn't decided whether to buy yet. So she signed. She had no idea what she was signing away, and I had no idea at the time what he was building, brick by brick, lie by lie, on the foundation of a trust I'd bled for. I sat there on my office floor with that photo in my hand, vanilla ice cream, her hand in mine, both of us laughing outside Aglamacy's brothers. And for a second I let myself just be in it, let myself remember what it felt like before any of this, before the hospital, before Helen's lawyer, before a tasting room full of strangers watching my own daughter tell me my hands were an embarrassment. I gave her everything I had left in me, and she looked right through it like it was nothing. I don't know how long I sat there, long enough for the light outside to go orange, then gray, then nearly gone. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. Number I didn't recognize. Cincinnati area code. I almost didn't answer it. A man who saves his daughter's life for free will not save her wedding for a lie. That's what I decided, sitting there with that phone buzzing in my hand, the room around me gone dark except for the glow of the screen. I want you to remember that line, because everything that happens next comes out of it. I answered, Mr. Reese? A woman's voice, young, a little rushed. Hi, this is Becky. I'm the events coordinator over at the venue for your daughter's wedding. I'm so sorry to bother you. I know it's late. Here we go. I'm so sorry to bother you, she said again. but we're having some issues with the final payment. The automated wire transfer from your attorney's office failed to clear this afternoon, and the bank notified us that the funding source has been completely blocked. The bride's mother said to call you directly and that you would handle it. Is everything all right?" I sat there on that office floor, that old photo of Lauren still in my other hand, vanilla ice cream dripping down a 9-year-old's fist frozen forever in a Kodak moment. I looked at my scarred knuckles wrapped around the phone. "Is everything all right?" I almost laughed. Almost. It came out instead as something low and tired, a sound I didn't recognize as my own voice. "No," I said. "Everything is not all right." Silence on her end. I could hear a printer running somewhere in her office, the hum of fluorescent lights. "Cancel the booking," I said. I heard her breath catch. I'm sorry, sir." "Cancel it. All of it. Mr. Reese, the contract is in your name." Her voice picked up speed now, the panic of someone who knows they're about to deliver bad news to the wrong guy at the wrong time. "If we cancel now, the deposit is forfeited. That's over $40,000. "I know." "Sir, I don't think you understand. That's non-refundable. Once we process this cancellation, there's no—" "I know," I said again, calmer this time, almost gentle. "Cancel it anyway," and I hung up. I didn't call Lauren. I didn't call Helen. I sat there in the dark with a 10-year-old photograph and let the silence do the talking for me. You want to know something? That was the first time in 15 years I felt like I had control of anything. Not rage, not revenge, not yet. That word gets thrown around too easy, and this wasn't about revenge, not at that moment. It was about a man finally putting his hand up and saying no more. $40,000, gone, just like that. And she doesn't even know it happened yet. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was scared of what I'd done. I want to be real clear about that. I slept fine with the decision. What kept me up was waiting for the phone to ring again. It didn't ring that night. It rang the next morning at 7:14 a.m. While I was standing at my kitchen counter eating a bowl of Cincinnati oatmeal. Nothing fancy, just oats and a little cinnamon, the same breakfast I've had since Lauren was in diapers. Lauren's name lit up the screen. Here it is. I let it ring twice before I picked up, mostly to see if my hand would shake. It didn't. "Dad?" Her voice was tight, high, the voice of someone who hadn't slept. "Either, Dad. What did you do?" "The venue called Mom. They said the booking's canceled. They said you told them to cancel it. Is that, Dad, is that true?" There it is. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "I'm sorry about the tasting." Just, "What did you do to my wedding?" "It's true," I said. "Why would you do that?" Her voice cracked, and for 1/2 second I almost felt the old pull. The instinct that had run my whole life as her father. Fix it. Make it better. Say sorry even when you're not the one who did anything wrong. I didn't say sorry. "You told me to sit in the back row, Lauren," I said. "I'm just giving you a little more room back there." She went quiet. I could hear her breathing, sharp and uneven, and somewhere behind her, Helen's voice, muffled, asking what was going on. "You're being cruel," Lauren finally said. Cruel. That word landed somewhere behind my ribs and just sat there, ugly and heavy. "No, sweetheart," I said, and my voice came out steadier than I expected. "I'm being finished." I hung up before she could answer. Here's something you need to know about a discretionary spendthrift trust, folks. It's a legal vault. I built it to protect Lauren from other people and, if I'm honest, from my own instinct to give her everything. Because it's discretionary, it means I have the final say on every single dollar that goes out. It runs entirely through me. But Aiden was slick. He had convinced Lauren to sign a stack of paperwork a year ago, using her future milestone payouts as a guarantee for a massive commercial business loan he was taking out. Here's the catch. A bank won't accept a discretionary trust as collateral unless the trustee, me, signs off on it. Aiden knew I'd say no, so he did what desperate con men do. He forged my signature on the guarantee paperwork. He thought he'd use the upcoming wedding gifts to clear the debt before anyone noticed. He miscalculated. Monday morning I called my attorney, David Finch, and told him to freeze all wedding distributions. By Wednesday, the dominoes started falling. The florist, the DJ, and the catering company all hit a wall. Their invoices came back marked insufficient funds. But I didn't stop there. I also pulled the trust's backing from the Kenwood Housebridge loan they were using to live past their means. Instead of calling me to ask what was going on, Helen and Lauren decided to go public. My neighbor Killian knocked on my door on Thursday evening holding her phone like a live grenade. Helen had gone full Hollywood, ring light, kitchen island, and tears on cue. She tagged local Cincinnati community groups and the Werner family's business pages, dabbing at her eyes and saying, "My daughter's biological father is holding her wedding hostage out of pure jealousy because another man is walking her down the aisle. He's bitter and controlling." She even pinned a comment at the top. "The Werners are old money and they have lawyers everywhere. We will see him in court." The internet did what it always does. Hundreds of strangers calling me a monster. But Helen made a fatal mistake. By tagging the Werners' public profiles, she brought a messy, low-class internet brawl right to the doorstep of a family that thrives on privacy. She thought she was weaponizing them against me. Instead, she guaranteed they would cut her loose. And then, the trap snapped shut. When that automated bridge loan payment for their house bounced on Tuesday, it triggered an immediate flag at the bank's compliance department. A human auditor actually pulled the file to see why a multi-million-dollar trust missed a payment. They looked at Aiden's commercial loan file. They looked at the signature on the guarantee. Then they called my attorney to verify it. David took one look at the forged document and told them the truth. Jack Reese never signed this. By Wednesday afternoon, it wasn't a family dispute anymore. It was a federal bank fraud investigation. The bank froze Aiden's accounts and called the entire commercial loan due immediately. At the exact same time, David enforced the penalty clauses on the house bridge loan. Their mortgage payment more than tripled overnight, giving them 30 days to pay or vacate. Aiden Hill, smooth-talking commercial businessman, was staring down a federal loan default and eviction inside a house he couldn't afford, sitting next to a wife who just torched her ex-husband's reputation on the internet for a wedding that no longer had a venue. I won't lie to you. There was a part of me, a small, ugly human part, that felt something close to satisfaction sitting in that. But mostly, I just felt tired. I want you to understand something about this stretch of time, because it's easy to make it sound like I was some mastermind sitting in a dark room pulling strings with an evil grin. That's not what it was. Mostly, it was quiet. I went to work. Precision machine shop out in Blue Ash. Same as always. Clocked in. Did my job. Kept my head down. Came home. I stopped by Skyline on Erie a couple nights that week. Sat alone at the counter with a three-way and a coney, because some things a man does just to remember what normal feels like. I didn't check Facebook. Killian did that for me, God bless her, showing up at my door every couple days with updates I never asked for but somehow needed to hear anyway. They deleted the second video, she told me on a Friday. The one about the Werners. That's so, Jack. She looked at me the way people look at you when they're trying to figure out if you're okay. You all right? Was I all right? I thought about that tasting table, about Lauren's face when she looked at my hands like they belonged to a stranger, about 25 years of Saturdays, vanilla ice cream, a little girl on my shoulders yelling, "There's my hero," to a loading dock full of guys who believed it just as much as I did. I will be, I told Killian. And for the first time in a long while, I actually believed it. Because somewhere out past Kenwood, a house was about to lose its funding. A wedding venue had already lost its deposit. A stepfather was about to lose a whole lot more than a leased Cadillac. And none of them saw what was coming next. My phone buzzed on the counter. Text message, no name attached, just a number I recognized as Helen's sister, somebody who hadn't spoken to me directly in almost a decade. "Jack, you need to see this. Call me." I stared at that message for a long moment. Whatever this is, I thought, it's not going to be good news. I picked up the phone and dialed. If you have been listening for a while, drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button while you're at it, and be sure you're subscribed. Some men beg on their knees for money. My daughter did it in my living room, and I still remember every word. I want you to sit with that for a second, because it took me a long time to sit with it myself. Let me back up. That phone call from Helen's sister, a woman named Peggy who I hadn't heard from since maybe 2015. That was the first domino I didn't push myself. That one just fell on its own. "Jack, it's Peggy," she said when I called back, voice tight and rushed. "I probably shouldn't be calling you. Helen would kill me. But somebody needs to. Peggy, what's going on? Aiden's gone." I sat down on my kitchen stool. Gone where? Nobody knows. The second the bank auditors flagged that forged signature and froze his accounts, he knew the game was up. He packed a bag that very same night and just left. Didn't say a word to Helen. She woke up to an empty closet and a house surrounded by federal investigators serving a warrant. He knew the fraud charges were coming, Jack. He ran before they could put the cuffs on him. A total coward. Runs the second the money dries up. I called that from day one, and I still hate being right about it. And the house? I asked, already knowing. Notice of default came Thursday. They've got 30 days before the bank starts foreclosure. I looked down at my own hand wrapped around the phone. Scarred knuckles. Tight, shiny skin. The same hand that got called ugly at a tasting table not even a month before. These hands paid for that house. And the man who called them beautiful enough to walk my daughter down the aisle just abandoned her the second things got hard. Funny how that works. Thanks for telling me, Peggy, I said. Jack? She hesitated. Are you going to help them? I didn't answer that question. Not because I didn't know the answer. Because I wasn't ready to say it out loud yet, not even to Peggy. I just said goodnight and hung up. I heard about the rest through Killian. Same as everything else that month. God bless that woman's Facebook addiction. The Warners found out about the fraud investigation the same week. Small city, remember? Everybody's one phone call from everybody else. And old money families like the Warners have a lot of phone calls at their disposal. A stepfather under federal bank fraud scrutiny. A public smear campaign gone sideways and now looking less like righteous outrage and more like a family imploding in real time on the internet. A canceled venue. A frozen trust that had clearly been funding their entire lifestyle. None of that plays well at the country club. The groom, nice enough kid from what little I'd seen of him, though clearly raised by people who valued image over substance, called Lauren on a Sunday afternoon. Killian didn't get me the transcript of that one, but I heard enough secondhand to know how it went. His family had decided the risk to their name wasn't worth it. Political families in Ohio don't survive scandal by association. They survive by getting far away from it, fast, with a clean public statement about wishing the young lady well, and never mentioning the words fraud or lawsuit or trust fund again. The wedding was off. Just like that, $100,000 wedding, gone. Fiancé gone. Stepfather gone. House about to be gone. And every single one of those things had my name quietly written somewhere underneath it, holding it up the whole time, until I stopped holding it up. I won't pretend I didn't feel something when I heard, but it wasn't joy. It wasn't satisfaction either, not really. It was something quieter and heavier than that. It felt like watching a house of cards fall down that I built the foundation for, and never got thanked for building. It was a Tuesday evening, about 3 weeks after that tasting table, when I heard the knock on my apartment door. I knew before I opened it. Some part of you always knows. I opened the door and there they were, Helen and Lauren, standing in the hallway of my modest building, looking about as far from that tasting room in Indian Hill as two people could get. Helen's makeup was smudged, her hair pulled back, messy instead of styled. Lauren looked like she hadn't slept in a week, hollow around the eyes, her hands shaking slightly at her sides. The hands that used to hold mine on Saturdays. Now they're the ones shaking. Jack. Helen's voice cracked on my name. Can we come in? A month ago she called me a jealous bully on the internet in front of thousands of strangers. Now she's standing in my hallway asking permission to come inside. I stepped back and let them in. Not because I owed them anything, because whatever I was about to say, I wanted to say it sitting down, and I wanted them to have to look me in the eye while I did it. They sat on my couch, small couch, second hand, nothing fancy, the kind of couch that probably embarrassed them more than my hands ever did. I sat across from them in the one chair I own, the one with the ottoman, and I waited. I've waited 15 years for this conversation. I can wait another minute. Lauren broke first. She slid off the couch onto her knees on my living room floor, and I want to tell you that didn't do something to me, watching my own daughter kneel in front of me, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't. Dad, please. Her voice was raw, cracked down the middle. I know you're angry. I know I hurt you. Angry doesn't begin to cover it, sweetheart. But go on. The venue's gone. The house. We're going to lose the house. Aiden's gone, Dad. He just left. He didn't even say goodbye, and I don't... She stopped, pressing her shaking hands against her face. The feds came to the house, Dad. They said he forged your name. They said he stole from my future. He used me to commit bank fraud, and now everything is gone. I don't know what to do. Please, just release the trust. Please. Helen was crying now, too. Quiet and controlled. The practiced kind of crying that had worked on plenty of people before me. Jack, we're begging you. We have nowhere else to go. You have nowhere else to go. 20 years ago, I had third-degree burns up both arms and nowhere else to go either. Nobody knelt on my floor for me. I didn't say any of that yet. I let the silence sit there, heavy, while Lauren cried on my carpet. And then she said it, the thing I didn't see coming, even after everything. "I remember Saturdays," she said barely above a whisper, looking up at me with eyes that looked, for just a second, like the 10-year-old who used to ride my shoulders to the ice cream shop. "I remember the smell of vanilla. I remember—" She stopped. "Come on. Say it." Finish the sentence. Her mouth opened, closed. Something moved behind her eyes. Something old. Something buried under 15 years of her mother's careful reconstruction. And for one full second, I thought she was finally going to say it. "I remember what happened at the plant. I remember what you did for me." She didn't say it. She looked down at the carpet instead, and whatever had almost surfaced went back under. She knows. Somewhere in there, underneath everything her mother built, she knows exactly what these hands did for her, and she still can't bring herself to say it out loud, even now, even on her knees. That's the moment something in me finally fully closed. I stood up, slow, unhurried, the way you stand up when you've made peace with a decision, instead of reacting to one. I walked to the small table by the window, the one with 2 chairs where I eat breakfast alone most mornings, and I sat down. I looked at both of them, still on my couch and my floor, and I waited until Lauren lifted her head to look at me. Then I put my hands flat on the table, both of them, palms down, scarred and shiny and twisted, right there in plain sight, where nobody could look away from them. "You said my hands were too ugly for your wedding day," I said. My voice didn't shake. I want that on the record. It didn't shake at all. "But these hands are the only reason you still have a face to cry with right now." Lauren made a sound like the air had been knocked out of her. "I saved you once, sweetheart," I said. "I won't save you again." Nobody moved. Helen had gone completely pale, her hand pressed over her mouth. Lauren just knelt there on my carpet, staring at my hands on that table like she was seeing them, really seeing them, for the very first time in her entire life. 25 years. 25 years of Saturdays and ice cream, and a settlement I never spent a dime of. And it took her standing on the wreckage of everything I built for her to finally look at these hands and understand what they actually mean. Too late, sweetheart. Too late. I stood up. I walked past both of them, past the couch, past 25 years of a life I gave everything to build, and I went to the window. Cincinnati was doing its evening thing out there. Streetlights flickering on along Erie Avenue. Somebody's dog barking 2 floors down. Ordinary life going on, ordinary and indifferent to what had just happened in my living room. I heard Helen behind me, voice breaking. "Jack, please, we have nowhere." I didn't turn around. I reached up and closed the curtain. I heard them sit there a moment longer, the particular silence of 2 people realizing there's nothing left to say that's going to change anything. Then I heard the couch creak. Footsteps, the door opening and closing. Quiet, none of the drama of that tasting room, none of the videos and the ring lights and the accusations. Just quiet. I didn't watch them leave. I stood at that closed curtain a long time, my scarred hands resting on the windowsill, and I let the apartment go silent around me. I'll give you the rest quickly, because you've earned the ending, and I don't believe in dragging out good news any more than I believe in dragging out bad news. Helen and Lauren were out of the house within the month. Because it was an unbacked bridge loan and not a standard mortgage, the bank moved fast, giving them 30 days to clear out before the locks were changed. It was quiet and unglamorous. None of the internet fanfare that came with the accusations. Last I heard through Peggy, they'd moved into a 2-bedroom rental in Norwood. Modest, unremarkable, the kind of place I'd lived in most of my adult life while they were living in a colonial with a pool. Funny how that worked out. Aiden never resurfaced in Cincinnati. Word got around eventually, through the same small city grapevine that told me everything else, that the bank fraud investigation turned into actual federal charges. Wire fraud, false collateral representation, the whole ugly list. Last anybody heard, he was somewhere down in Florida, living under considerably less luxury than the leased Cadillac days, waiting on a court date he couldn't smooth-talk his way out of. A total coward to the end. Didn't even have the spine to face what he built. The Werners never spoke to Lauren again. Not one call, not one message, nothing but a clean, well-lawyered silence. The kind rich families are very, very good at. As for the trust, I never released it. Not the wedding money, not the house money, none of it. David Finch restructured the whole thing eventually, locked it down tighter than before, with new terms that made sure nobody but Lauren herself, as an adult making her own honest choices, could ever touch it again. No stepfather, no mother, no fiance's family pressure. Just her, if she ever earns her own way back to deserving it. Maybe someday she will. That's not up to me anymore. That's up to her. As for me, I still live in that same one-bedroom off Erie Avenue. Still drive that same Chevy Malibu. Still work the same quiet trade out in Blue Ash. Still stop into Skyline some nights for a three-way and a coney. Alone at the counter. Same as always. Larry still calls me every year, same as always too, right around the anniversary. Last time we talked, he said something that stuck with me. You did good, Reese, he said. Not the wedding thing. The other thing. 20 years ago. You did good. I know, Larry. I've always known. It just took the rest of the world a little while to catch up. Some Saturdays, when the weather's right, I still walk down to Agla Macy's Brothers. I still order vanilla, even though I've never once liked vanilla. Never did. Not really. I just liked watching her eat it. I sit at the counter alone now, and I look down at my hands, these scarred, twisted, ugly, beautiful hands, and I think about a 10-year-old girl on my shoulders, screaming there's my hero to a loading dock full of men who believed her. Completely. I'd still do it again. A million times over I'd still do it again. That was never the question. It was never going to be the question. The question was whether she'd ever be brave enough to say thank you. She wasn't. Not yet, anyway. But these hands? They're not waiting around for it anymore. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Let me know where you're watching from. I will see you on the next one.